My God, folks, I love this so much. I love this so much. I don't even know what to do with it. And I think my face is covering part of this, but on the bottom right, they have the kind of expected now cookie banner, but it says legally required cookie banner. PostHog.com doesn't use third-party cookies, only a single in-house cookie. Look at that. No data is sent to a third party. And Ursula von der Leyen would be so proud is the bottom part here. And I'll close that. So again, just to kind of talk about where we are, this is PostHog. This is their landing page, and I love it so very much. Let me see if I can move this. Can I move this? I can. Okay. Um, and super quick, I am here because the folks at PostHog are very active on LinkedIn and they're very funny. They're they have a really enjoyable presence. But truth be told, I have no idea what PostHog does. So I'm here on this website checking this out and having this delightful experience because of these guys' personality. Ooh, I can move the picture. Because of these folks' personality and how they engage with, oh, I can't move this anymore. Oh, no, I can only move it once. Okay. So it's because of the public personas of the people involved with this company that I am here. Again, not knowing what this company does, but I wanted to check it out. I wanted to see it. And conveniently, there's a tagline right here that says, "We make dev tools that help product engineers build successful products," which you know what? That does a good job. And there is a demo. But before I jump into that, I want to talk just high level about what I'm seeing here. So right off the bat, again, it was because the people in this company are so much fun that I came to this in the first place. That's how they got me here. May or may not be the correct target market, but that's really good advertising, and that starts me off with a very positive impression. Get to the landing page. Immediately, it's really cute hedgehogs. All the other stuff loads next. It's keyboard keys, so I can see that and see, like, okay, there's hedgehogs. It's cute. But then also, we got some fancy keycaps. We got some stuff going on here. Clearly, keyboard keys. We've got that quirky logo that's considerably more basic, but still gets it across. And then right here, as I was looking at this, it's clearly a retro desktop feature. I see a typewriter. That's a little alarming. Company handbook. There's a ton of information on here, and that could immediately drive me away. It could immediately be overwhelming. I could look at this and be like, this is too much. I'm not touching this. But because of the presentation, it looks like fun. It looks interesting. It's exciting. It's clearly labeled, and it's got a button right there that says talk to a human. So there's multiple places here actually where it says talk to a human. So there are places where you've got a demo. There's clearly an AI aspect behind this. I believe it's mentioned somewhere. Um, but it specifically calls out multiple times that you can talk to a human, which is such a wonderful. It is hand-holding. It's like it's very literally corporate hand-holding, but at the same time, it's very, very satisfying to see that at a time where a lot of folks are getting AI fatigue, right? And in some cases, AI tools are working really well, in a lot of cases, they're not. So you have both sides of that. And as a company, if you're presenting your AI tools to consumers, you have to understand both sides of that. You have to say, like, okay, these tools are really powerful, they're cool, we like them. Here's our cool stuff. But also, we understand there might be some hesitation and there might be some bad feels. So here is a talk to a human option. I'm going to watch the demo and see what they got and see if I accidentally sign up for an emailing list.
Hey everyone, I'm Mina from PostHog. Today I'll show you an updated overview of our platform. To start with, PostHog is your all-in-one solution for analyzing, testing, and observing your product and deploying new features. Just to give you an overview of all of our products, Product Analytics helps you track user behavior in depth. Web Analytics is more marketing focused, where you get an out-of-the-box view geared towards tracking your website. Session Replay gives you a real-time picture of the user experience, and it's super important for understanding how users navigate your product. Feature Flags let you introduce new features to certain users or groups first. This way, you can kind of gauge the impact and effectiveness of these changes before doing a full-scale launch. Using feature flags, you can do A/B testing and experiment with different features to find out what works best. And surveys let you collect direct user feedback right within your product. Data Pipeline provides connectivity both in and out to adjacent systems, and Data Warehouse allows you to merge operational data with your product analytics for a deeper understanding of your users. So by bringing all of these into one platform, we're saving you time and effort. Let's start exploring these in detail. We'll start with events because PostHog basically runs on events. So I'm on Activity tab, and
Okay, so this is really cool, but I can tell right out of the gate that I may not be the target audience for this because I don't fully understand that. Now, I've been developer adjacent for years. I can look at this and kind of recognize that this is a suite of tools for deploying software updates to your product that gives you some logs, some information. So you have detailed information about what happened during that launch, if anything needs to be rolled back, if there were any issues. You have direct feedback from the consumer in the product. That is phenomenal. As the customer side of things, I really appreciate that. Um, the A and B testing lets you try out multiple versions of wording or a specific prompt to see how it behaves with certain algorithms. So that's something I'm familiar with from YouTube, where it lets you try out multiple versions of something to see what is the most effective. Um, yeah, so I'm going to keep watching this. It's a little bit long. Bear with me here. I will try to add chapter markers on this so we can say if you want to skip the demo or not, because I'm going to poke at some of these other features as well. I'm actually going to try the talk to a human button and see what happens. It's an email icon, so we'll see if that actually is live or if that sends an email. I'm assuming it sends an email, but we'll try it. We'll try it. But yes, let's finish this demo to see if I get a better, more clear idea of what this is. But again, probably not the correct target audience. But I still want to go deeper and see if this explains a little bit more to the layperson or someone who's not as familiar with this, what exactly this means. And that's important here for the PostHog folks, because as somebody who is, again, developer adjacent, I want to understand this so that when I'm talking to someone who is the target audience for this, I can hear the keywords that they would say, the concerns that they would have saying, and it would trigger the light bulbs in my head of like, oh, this is what PostHog does. Have you checked out this cool thing? But I need to actually be able to translate that. I have to understand PostHog enough. I have to understand the problem my contact is facing enough to be able to have that conversation and make those connections. And that's one of the big challenges for these kind of companies and products is figuring out how to make that connection. Be technical and brief enough to appeal to the tech folks, but also be kind of universal enough so that the non-tech or low-tech or middling tech folks can actually follow it up and understand when they're supposed to bring this to their network.
you're seeing I filtered this view for my user. You're seeing a list of events performed just by this user. Let's click into page view. You'll see all these properties that are attached to this event. So it tells me more than just a page view. It tells me browser information, device information, location information. All these properties with the little hedgehog icon next to them are the ones that are automatically captured.
So that's really good. So it gets some of that traffic and activity.
Getting started is very straightforward. All you need to do is add this code snippet to the header of your site, and you're basically all set. With this installation, you'll turn on auto capture, which means all the views and interactions on your site will start getting collected as events. And you do have the option to blank out information for privacy reasons, while also getting the valuable insights still. You're also just not limited to auto capture events. You can define your custom events and track the specific actions that are unique to your site. One thing you'll notice about auto-captured events is that their names are not always super helpful, and there are multiple ways a user can perform a certain behavior. So you might want to group them to identify certain patterns, and that's something we do under Act.
So I may have misunderstood this already. This actually looks more like a variant of Google Analytics. We're talking website analytics. So a div element on your website could be a button, could be a link, could be a fillable field, so that whenever someone comes to a website and clicks on these specific pieces, this can tell you a lot of information about that, which is very different than what I was thinking. So I'm gonna have to talk to the marketing folks on this. Like, this is cool, but hard to describe and explain, which is exactly why I'm having the trouble. But I can see that these graphics do have some some tight similarity with Google Analytics. Continue.
Actions are basically pre-filtered events.
Okay.
Let's look at this one example. Here we're combining multiple raw events under this one sign-up comprehensive action. So the first group here is the event we send from our backend to make sure that the user sign up past all the validation steps. in creating an account. So that's a custom event we've defined.
That step, just to talk through this, I'm going to over narrate this. That verification steps before you start tracking any information really helps filter out bots. Any kind of automatic traffic will fail at certain steps of verification. So you're not tracking a bot or something that you don't really want to track because it's not legitimate traffic. That step is really good because it's making sure that your events are actual events. It's an actual customer, it's an actual visitor doing something instead of an automation or a bot. Of course, it's not going to catch all of them, but having that like pre-filter step, that's good. Yes, so this looks even more like website analytics. Let's see, keep going.
And then we're combining that with auto-captured events. So you'll see here on this page, if someone clicks the button submit, that event will be grouped under this user sign up action. And in the bottom here, you'll see the same thing for the pre-flight page. There are two ways of creating actions. One is just through this dashboard, and then the other is by using the toolbar, which I'll show you next. Okay, so this is the toolbar page.
Quick note again, I know I'm interrupting a lot, and apologies for that. The cute hedgehog artwork is especially impactful and important here because this is a ton of information to throw at someone in an initial demo. This is really good because it's very detailed. It shows you the individual steps. It's got the little chapter markers so you can see a lot of it. That's great, but it does help soften the blow of just content overload to have the very simple chapter markers and the visual appeal in between. That's a really nice psychological nod, and I personally appreciate it as I am more technically minded than most to the point where I can follow this, but I still appreciate that, and I understand that's probably very helpful for a lot of people who would be watching this demo. Away.
And I'll launch it for our app now. So you'll see this nice little toolbar, and if I click action here, it'll actually show me the actions that are on this page. And then I can also create a new action right here. You can also do other things. This is basically like an inspect element. So a few other things you can do a heat map, which shows you this overlay of all the clicks on this page. You can select elements. You can override the flags just on your browser to see how it looks. So it's a very fun and handy tool.
There was so much there to unpack.
All right, let's talk about people now. So in PostHog, users are anonymous by default, which is a key part of our approach to privacy. You do have the option to identify users with a distinct ID if needed. For example, we use emails for identification. And if I click into a user, you'll see it has properties just like events. You'll see a lot of marketing related information here. You can go further in this and use session replay. So if I click recordings here for my user, you'll see me using this platform. You can see mouse movements. It's very helpful visual understanding of how users interact with your site. You can also filter these. So for example, if I want to just see rage clicks, I can filter for those.
And again, like this is wild. And this is an interesting time, right? To be in tech, to be in any of these tools, the level of power that's just sort of casually dropped in that someone mentions. Like, if you didn't catch that. So what she was just showing was this bit where you can view sessions of your website where you can look at a place where a visitor went to your website, how they interacted with it. And so you can see how their mouse moved. Did they go from here to here, here to here? Did they pause in places? Did they click on things? And then specifically was dropped rage clicks. If you see someone just randomly clicking around, that could be like the page freezes up, someone is having trouble finding something, they're just having a bad day. Like that you specifically call it rage clicks shows that this is someone who very deeply understands web traffic and how to view it, but is just casually throwing out that this tool will track that, which is that is a level of website traffic insight that I'm not used to seeing anywhere, and that is extraordinary. So this is fun.
Events, and then it will show me all the recordings with rage clicks in them, and it will also mark it within the video where you would see that rage click. You can black box or filter out sensitive information. So you can make sure you're maintaining user privacy while still gathering valuable qualitative data.
And just because it's grayed out there doesn't necessarily mean it's not tracked. It does help you as an observer make sure that the opinions and the way you are reacting to that data is neutral, which helps. But the data is also still there. So there is a privacy concern here, but it's still that it's anonymized by default is really nice. It gives you a broad perspective of how people interact with your website content without, again, putting in any automatic bias, right? So if you don't know who is initiating each session, you can get a broad idea of how everyone interacts with it without, you know, making subgroups.
Similar to how we group raw events into actions, we can also group people into, for example, different organizations. If you want to analyze a company behavior and how companies are using your products, this is a good way of doing it. You can use groups.
Now that would be if this is an internal tool, right? So if this is something that you were putting on a like a Microsoft SharePoint or something you add into a website that's only used by your own company internally, these are analytics you could apply again only to people who are in your organization who have security access to this place. So that's a way you can use this internally as opposed to something like an e-commerce point where you're working with customers, for example, right? So that was another kind of casual piece just thrown in there about how this is used.
Or you can also build a cohort. So cohorts are groups of people. You can define them by person properties, or you can do it based on behavior. So let's take a look at this one called Twitter users. Here we're defining matching criteria for.
Wow. And again, like just sort of casually thrown in there, so you're able to view the way different audience members interact with your content based on the source they came from, which isn't necessarily going to tell you a lot about them, but it's one of those things where you wouldn't know that unless you're tracking this. So if you have everybody who's referred to our website from a destination link that came from Twitter, which that is tracked. Websites track where things come from and who goes where from what. Um, if you see specific behaviors related to specific originations, where it comes from, impacts how people interact with your site, that is something that you can then adapt to and change. Hey, this audience is behaving this specific way, and this kind of tool lets you say, we will treat them in this specific way back, which has some risks. You want to make sure you don't respond over aggressively to a small data pool, like 5 people from Twitter do something weird. You don't want to treat all Twitter traffic from then on based on their behavior. But you could see how the bigger these pools are, the more powerful this kind of insight could be. So if you have your Twitter users are dramatically different than your Google, Facebook users, or the people that come from those sources, that is something you can then tailor, and you can have a really unique experience based on where people come from.
The first one, it's a property using initial UTM source. And then this other one is a behavior-based filter. It's quite flexible. There's a lot of different ways of setting matching criteria. These cohorts are dynamic, so they're updated real time, but you can also take a snapshot by doing a static cohort.
Again, just casually there, like say you have an ad campaign, for example. So you have a specific outreach type, you have a specific video ad campaign on a specific platform. You could have a cohort of people who clicked on the link from that ad campaign. So that's a really good example of where cohorts would be incredibly powerful, where you could directly track how things worked from that ad campaign without kind of getting noise from other sources, right? So you could see how people responded to that ad campaign specifically, what the traffic was, where it came from, how they behaved on the site, how it was different from other groups. That's really powerful. And one of the really cool things about this is if you use Google Analytics, if I understand correctly, any of the analytics you would get would only show you that information for Google ad campaigns. If you do a Meta ad campaign, you do a Twitter ad campaign, you do a like some kind of in-house ad campaign or any organic social, you won't be able to track it the same way as you can with this, because this tool has a lot more customization, is a lot more platform agnostic. So you can take different campaigns from different platforms and track how they behave differently more broadly than you could with Google, I think. Sounds good.
All right, now that we've identified everything, we can talk about product analytics. So let's start with these templates. If you want to create an insight, you can always use these templates that will ask you to put in some events and then generate your dashboard for you. Great way to.
I just wanted to call out again that quick contrast between the screen we just saw that had the cute hedgehogs and this one here. Now, this one, you look at this, immediately it says powerful, it says customizable, it says easy to use because there's a simple flow and it's not totally overwhelming, although it is a lot. That you have both kind of styles in this feeds multiple different user types, where you're going to say your power users and your kind of casual users will both have kind of they're both catered to, which is really good. And again, I talked about that fatigue, like the tech fatigue. If you're going page by page by page through something like Salesforce, every single page looks the same. It is like gray space text, bold header, small text, smaller text. It gets your eyes sort of cross by the end of that. So having this level of variety, the visual appeal with this isn't shy about making things dense, like something like Gainsight, which has tons of white space to avoid overwhelming you somehow. Um, I really appreciate that this does both. It's that a lot of the impact that would have on your brain as a regular user would be unconscious. You wouldn't really realize day to day how that was impacting you. But something like this really does soften that blow in ways that I really appreciate. As someone who's used a lot of these platforms for a long time, who's seen a lot of teams use these platforms for a long time, I really love that. And that's also really highlights that this is a creative startup team because that is something that would be seen by a lot of more traditional corporate teams as unserious. And they wouldn't probably allow you to do that because they would say, like, we need consistent branding. This is silly. We're not doing this. And that would be, I think, very much the wrong choice. So that this team has done this, it feels very intentional. It's very smart. And it really covers a lot of different bases that most tools out there won't. Like if you compare Salesforce or like the Microsoft suite, those larger corporate software platforms, they are not cute. They are not quirky. They don't do anything to soften the blow of just text, text, text. And it matters to do that, both to have those quick mnemonics to jump around and be like, the pirate is the thing I need in this moment, or go to the pirate button, or go to the lab scientist button. It really helps communicate, use this consistently, understand it well, and enjoy using it in a way that a lot of other tools wouldn't do. And that stands out as something that they did here, and which really helps this like overwhelming march of incredibly powerful features.
Start. So we'll start with
That.
the AARRR dashboard, also known as Pirate Metrics. First A, just as a reminder, first A is for acquisition, getting those signups. Second is activation, getting people to engage. Then it's retention, getting people to stay engaged. Revenue is getting them to pay for your product. And referral is users telling their friends and colleagues about your product.
Okay, sorry about the feint there.
All right, so the first step is acquisition. Here you see a line chart. You can choose your time range and change grouping. And there's different ways of visualizing this chart. So if you do click edit, you'll see that the setup is pretty intuitive. It's based on the actions and events you want to check. So we're looking at an action here for user signups. We're aggregating data by users. You can do.
And this is insanely powerful because, again, I keep comparing this to Google Analytics and talking about how it can interact with ad campaigns. It's not just that. This is also a just insanely massive marketing tool that allows you to set up automations and all of these really powerful automatic follow-up things based on how users interact with the website. Like the amount of things that this can do just on this brief demo is a little bit mind-boggling, and I'm still kind of swirling of like which team needs to know about this the most. I was wrong initially. I don't think it's the developer team, but if your developers are customer facing, sure. But your marketing team needs to know how to use this. That is crazy powerful. Your analytics teams, your customer teams. This is wow. I'll try not to say that too much, but wow.
It in many different ways as well. And you can also use SQL if none of these options are helpful. The second series here is the same data.
That again, I know I'm going to try not to interrupt this too much, but that's really, really important because a lot of modern tools will give you a lot of powerful options, but then oversimplify to the point where they don't have anything built in to customize. They don't give you the option to go in and code manually. And there's a reason for that because it's hard to build that. It's complicated to have that work. And that is astronomically more likely to break your product if somebody gets in there and does something wonky than just having built-in options without the custom piece. But if you want somebody to really get everything that they need, every single possible customer, if they have a unique use case, if they have something they want to do with this, it's hugely important to have the option for them to add in some kind of custom categories. And a SQL template, like being able to put in SQL by hand for this kind of thing is really powerful. And again, very important. I didn't say it. I didn't say WOW. I didn't say it.
Data, but it's just grouped by organization. You can apply filters. We have a global filter option that's for the entire chart, or this icon lets you filter for specific series. And for filtering, you can basically use all the raw data, and you can also use breakdown. Let's try that and do continent names. And just look at the last 7 days.
And if you're talking e-commerce, talking about location data, that's really, really, really important because you're going to have very different traffic and very different interaction based on different countries, especially depending on what product or platform this is used to track. Oh, and I see SQL or the SQL custom is beta. Okay. But still, it's in there. And that is very meaningful that this team has chosen to build that out because I mentioned a couple of the pitfalls there. It's risky, it's hard to build, but still, it is important. And I really appreciate that they did that.
There we go. So you see different lines for different continents. And then at the bottom, you see a detail table. Next up, funnels. So here you're seeing in the last 14 days, this many users signed up. And then 40% of them actually did a discovery, which is another action, which means they created an insight, basically. You see the drop-offs here. We have the detailed information here at the bottom that shows counts, percentages, also median and average time. Configuration is similar to trends. This has 2 steps. You can add more. You can aggregate by users, events. You can define a conversion limit. So here we have 14 days. So the second step should have been performed within the 14 days after the first step. You can also do the steps sequentially or in any order. Filters and breakdown are the same that we've seen in trends.
Now, before we jump to the next, let me actually rewind that just a little bit. I don't know that I can. No, I can't rewind. A couple things I saw on the top there. There was the time to conversion. I believe it was 21 hours or so. There was the conversion rate. Here you've got another filter option to filter out internal and test users. So you can make sure that your own traffic isn't impacting the metrics you've got there. These are all just hugely important little quality of life features that are just, again, thrown in there and weren't talked about at all in the demo. But if you're looking user signups, discoveries, again, I keep mentioning e-commerce, just a general website for this. If you're a SaaS B2B business that wants this kind of metrics for your sales website, this is really powerful. But then if you think about even your basic, like newsletter or blog site, any of these different platforms you would use where you want to understand your audience, you want to make sure you're having the best possible bang for your buck, usually being time. You want to make sure that the things you're doing are efficient and effective. This is exactly the kind of data that will tell you that. Yeah, that's good.
You can visualize this by
There it is. So conversion rate, average time to convert. So it says 21 hours, which of course this is a demo. Who knows if that's accurate, but still you're looking average time to convert. You've got an idea of what your sort of sales turnaround time is. You're based on this exact conversion funnel. Based on this specific conversion funnel, you can tell what the conversion rate is. So like per person who does this action in this place, just under 41% of them actually end up converting into a sale or a subscription. Like that.
time to convert. So that shows you how much time passed between the first and the second step for different users. And then you can also do a historical trend that shows you conversion rate.
It's awesome. So you also, and this gives you a customization of steps. We'll see if she talks about this too. She probably will. But this gives you over time so you can see when your busiest business times are. And the more established you get, the more established you are in your specific market, the more helpful that is to understand when you really need to be on the ball, when you really need to be processing, like, how do I reach my customers in this moment? How do I capitalize on this exact moment? When can I maybe be quieter or encourage them to be more active? Like, do you offer sales? Do you offer promos? Do you do ad campaigns in the slumps? Or do you really hit the busy times? Like, you have a lot of ways to react to this, but just data is good to have so that you can then choose how you respond to it.
over time.
So it didn't. So I did want to highlight there that there was a drop-down toggle for step to step, and it was step 1 to step 2. You could customize that to go from step 1 to step 5, step 2 to step 3, like different places of the journey where you can track the specific time moments of conversion in your funnels to see the most important parts. So like that steps 1 through 2 are kind of, you know, somebody just getting their toes in the pool, you don't really know much about them. You know that step 5 is kind of a foregone conclusion. You really want to see that moment where it turns someone from a prospect to a customer. So maybe you're looking steps 2 to 3 or 4 to 5, like something like that. Yeah, so it's really cool to have that customization as well.
Next, we'll talk about retention charts. So here we're looking at unique organizations who analyze an insight for the first time in the past 10 weeks. And then we're checking whether or not they've come back to analyze more insights in the following weeks. So here's the graph. In this table, for example, for the cohort that started on December 4th, there's 558 organizations. So at week 0, we're at 100%. So those are the people who analyzed an insight. And then we're looking at every week after that to see if they've come back or not. For example, this 11% seems lower than the other cohorts, so you might want to actually click into it and see the details of what happened there.
Wow. No, I said it.
Another
Sorry.
helpful insight type is paths. So this path chart.
So this one, and I just hit it with the pause there, specifically references blogs. So this is the first example we've seen of exactly what we're looking at. So
You're seeing on the screen is for one of our blog pages. So you see here that visitors who came to our website through a blog post, we're looking at their journey, where they went on the website after. It's a bit crowded, but you can clearly see that people who came to the blog page and then went to the pricing page, you see the people dropping off. These are people probably who came to the page and realized it's not for them. So it's a helpful way of looking at how people are navigating your tool.
now that kind of flowchart, I've briefly seen them before, but I wasn't familiar with how to interpret them. And the way that she just described that is a super fast way to understand exactly what this is. You've got source, percentage of traffic that goes to the following source, and then where you either lose or somebody follows on to the next step at each individual thing. And of course, you can filter this a little bit to see which you want to see. Like if they go to the website, then go to pricing, what percentage continues on, where do they go next? So you can hide any of these, but this is just your total flow of traffic. This crazy spongy octopus thing shows all of the possible routes that someone can take from a source through the website. Yeah, incredibly powerful data if you're able to tease out trends and moments from that. Like if you have a ton of drop off on pricing, are a lot of people scared away by the price? Were they just kind of considering for future? You can't make too strong assumptions about that, but knowing that is still very helpful.
You can configure where to start a path or where to end it, and visualize all the paths in between.
Maximum number of paths if that's just too much. So you can be laser focused on just a
Next,
handful
we'll
of
talk
traffic
about
paths.
feature flags. Here you see one that I created for this demo. It's called beta feature. And if I click edit, you'll see that I assigned it a key, and then I define release conditions here. So here under release conditions, I've first used a cohort. So this cohort is for our team, and I set that to 100% of all the users. And then the second one, I just use a specific user, which is myself. I can add more conditions here. And the way to implement it is by using this code snippet.
So say, for example, I talked about that SQL where you can do the custom SQL code. Say you want to roll that out in the beta to a beta test group. You can say the people who signed up for the beta could be your condition. People on this beta sign up list, or you could do a specific subset, people with this email domain who we have pre-vetted as people who are power users who understand the limitations, who we're setting loose on this to see if they can break it. This is this is where I initially thought that it was like for developers, and on some level this is. Like I still, at the end of this, I still don't know who this is for except everyone. Uh, but this is really, really good because it does give you the option to roll out features to specific users. Like this is already a built-in automated way to say users who are this expertise level or have used this for this long or are this contract level get this feature. And it's a really handy toggle to be able to say very quickly and easily, this feature goes here, this feature goes here, not only to roll it out, but also as an internal check later. If you need to know which users and people have access to this feature, this tracks it. So you can see exactly who has what, who has where, when they got it, how they're using it. I've seen a lot of teams get logjammed on this where you don't know who has access to certain features because it's not logged or tracked anywhere except by hand inside the platform. This is awesome because it's a very controlled way to roll these things out and then track exactly who has access to what in batches. The rollout to percentage, I don't really feel that's particularly useful because that feels random, but it's nice to have it, I suppose. You could just randomly release a feature to 20% of your users and see what happens. Chaos is fickle. At least you'd have it tracked. Sorry.
And once I'm done, I click Save, and then I can see the insights that use this feature flag. I can see which project it's under. I can schedule this feature flag. And I can see what's changed and also manage permissions of who can edit this feature flag. Once you have your feature flag implemented, you can start using A/B testing. So here's an example we used recently. This one is set up to see if landing on different pages after sign up will increase engagement. So you're seeing here the recommended sample size. You can define your variants. You can do more than 2. The participants are determined by the feature flag release conditions. And this is the funnel where you're setting your goals. You can set funnel goals or trend goals. So here we have our 2 groups. And then below here, we're seeing what conversion looks like for these different groups. So it looks like in this specific experiment, we haven't really seen much of an impact on conversion between different groups. Last thing we're going to cover is surveys. You can create a new survey using.
This is something that is very near and dear to my heart. So before we jump in there, I want to understand this. I'm very much a customer person, customer success, customer support. And this immediately, you've got NPS, you've got CSAT, product market fit. Interesting. You've got customer effort score. There's a ton of different categories here. This still is an automated survey, but there's a couple things that are really, really important to call out right away. Number one, there's an open feedback category. So there is a space where anyone can type in anything, or they can say, I hate this because XYZ. It's not captured by any of the others. If you are doing actual customer feedback, you have to have some kind of open-ended response that is then read. You have to give customers a place to put it, and you have to read it. And that I cannot say that more strongly, and that PostHog has this already built in here is hugely important. So, I mean, we're all very familiar with these. So this is good. Let's see what happens.
A template, or you can create one from scratch. A survey that we have asks, does pineapple belong on pizza? So you see it's a pretty even split here. And you're seeing all the stats of who viewed, who submitted a response, who dismissed a question. And you can see the individual responses here below.
Oh, we got music in this part.
I want to briefly mention pricing. We have a pretty generous free tier to get you started on all of these products. You can see the details on our pricing page, and you can use the pricing calculator to have a sense of what your monthly bill might look like. Another thing we recommend here is to get started and then see for a few days what your event volume is like while you're still on the free tier.
Oh shoot, I missed it. Okay, so while we're thinking about it, a couple things I want to highlight there. That offers a variety of flexible pricing models, which is really important, but also they're on a slider, which again means that there is a built-in thing on the PostHog side to track that, which is also really important. If you're going to offer some level of flexible pricing, you have to make sure the way that that pricing is applied is fluid, where it's automatically able to track and log that so that your contracting doesn't get crazy. It's also important to note that that appears that pricing is based on usage. So it will bill more the more you use it outside of that free tier. I also saw there was a nonprofit scale, which is awesome, and that there was a startup program specifically for startups under a certain age or dollar value. So that's really exciting too. So that was just very briefly flagged over, but those are a couple things I wanted to be sure to mention. Yeah, that's awesome.
To wrap up, PostHog is your all-in-one solution for you to build great products. We hope you get started today and let us know what you think.
Okay, that was a really good demo. And that is a really hard thing to do to demo a product this complicated in that amount of time. You need somebody that really understands it, can talk through every single piece of it and do the demos. And I called out some things that were missing, but still, I wanted to really shout out the lady that did that. She did an absolutely terrific job. That said, I still don't really know who this is for, except everyone. Like, this is end-to-end analytics for basically any company out there that has a digital presence. Uh, Yeah. Now, that it has to be installed through a code snippet means that it has to be a platform that you have access to the code on. So, custom website, templated website, you have to have something that is yours. A lot of the blog sites out there, a lot of the newsletter platforms out there, like Beehive, I believe, do have access to do that. But that does actually give us an idea of the customer pool. Or if it's a product you built yourself, if you have something in there that allows you to have dynamic code snippets like that, that's something you can do in here too. Okay, we're gonna click around a bit. I promised I was gonna do the talk to a human, and I don't want this video to go, whoa. We'll come back to that. Okay, I am gonna do a contact on that just to see, but we'll come back to that. Customers.mdx, what is this? What do we got? And I love this UI. It's just fun. It feels like it's built in desktop here. Okay. All right, nice. Y Combinator backed, very good. This is some customers who use it. So the customers.mdx is, it looks like not exactly testimonials, but close. So it says who they are and what they're doing. So products used, not all listed, so Mistral AI. But it does show who, well, so they're using their own products. That's good. So yeah, that's very cool to have that, and I assume that's somewhat dynamically updated. Oh, this is a share button. Look at this. And these are really functional buttons. I'm very impressed with how well this was built. A lot of time and effort went into this. No surprise considering how much of a product this is. I don't even know how old this company is. Surely they, oh, a changelog. What is it? All right, this is again, no, so they have updates on YouTube. They have announcements, product announcements. I can't tell you how many SaaS companies I've worked at that where companies or customers really, really want to know what has happened, what the latest releases are. So like sign up for a newsletter or something. This is an insane level of detail, but it's here. So if you have power users that are watching this that want to see what's rolled out when, what's new, it's here. And this is so powerful. And I see AI was added at some point there, but that's also quite late in the development process, considering. And you can also jump month to month. Wow. Incredible UI. This user interface is amazing. I love interacting with this website, which is really gratifying because when I saw it, I hoped I would. Oh, this is cool. So we can look at the company handbook. What do we got here? So we're not going to go into that because that's a lot. Uh, Now, shout out to any and all. Ooh, okay, yeah, there we go. Look at that. Shout out to any and all AI companies. You want a cleanly organized company handbook. You want it to be good. There is a search. That's good. I love this Ask a Post Hoc AI, but put a chat box in there. Give me a little sidebar where I can actually ask questions and search this live as I'm looking at it so I can scroll through it. That's the kind of stuff where AI chatbots can be incredibly powerful to parse through this in a smart way that would be there exactly when people need it. Good to have this. I assume this is savable. You can bookmark it. Can you download it? Not that I want to, but can you? I don't see a way to download it. I wonder if that's something the AI thing could do, but that's not, I don't need that right now. Let's look at why PostHog. What do you got here? Okay. Hello, James. He has a very fun presence on LinkedIn. He's one of the people that drove me here. We're here to help product engineers build successful products. So this is geared towards the engineering team. Okay, that's cool. Literally every piece of SaaS that a product engineer needs. Yes, it is, and goes well beyond that too. I've talked about a couple of the different ways that this interacts with other teams as well, but that all of it is tied together in a way that is very engineering friendly, but also interacts well with the other teams is very, very impressive. That's a standout piece of this. Also, that the product suite includes multiple pieces implies that they can be purchased, and actually the customers MDX implies that these can be purchased a few pieces at a time, so you don't need to get the full suite, although you probably want to, considering how end-to-end it is. Okay, so this is in 2020. We launched on Hacker News their MVP in 2020, just 4 weeks after we started writing code. Wow. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Since then, we've grown far beyond analytics into an entire product and data toolkit. So that immediately reads to me like this started out as a Google Analytics analog and grew from there impressively well into an entire product and data toolkit used by over 190,000 teams, nearly 200,000 teams. Very impressive. Maybe now. But our approach to building PostHog is very different. Read our story. We'll check that later. Why we're different. We have rainbow hedgehogs. If you like the way most companies treat you, you might not like us. I'm going to read that. We'll get to that. We're building the company we've always wanted to work for. This means rejecting all the annoying parts of the SaaS industry that have somehow become industry standard. I already, right out of the gate, I really like that because if I think of SaaS as an industry, I think of products that go to an exit. I think of products that are bought out very quickly that then take everything that made them good and kind of strain it down to the bare minimum. And then on top of that, have reduced service, a weaker product, and then annual price increases. That's kind of like when I think of SaaS, unfortunately, that's one of the big things associated with it, which sucks because it's one of the most powerful business models out there, and there's huge need for basically everything. So you think of like Salesforce or HubSpot, both I mentioned these are CRMs, but it's you could kind of think of those as like some of the giants in the market. This is a huge healthy space for startups, but most of the time, startups die in their infancy, for lack of a better term. They tend to be really strong products, really happy customers. They go, 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 and then they hit a wall where somebody buys them out and takes away everything that made them good, and then makes them more expensive and worse. So I really appreciate this mention right away because from a customer perspective, from someone who cares about customers, the people at the company, the mission behind the company, and about kind of like every aspect of it, I appreciate that there are more and more people calling out like the traditional SaaS approach has some real big problems. Like nobody wants a product they can use for 5 years and then it breaks, so they have to do it again. People want something that'll work for as long as they need it. They want a good company that makes promises, keeps those promises, and continues to build on what it does well while taking care of its people and its customers. Like that's simply put, like that should be a non-issue. Um, you look at a company like Google, it's been around for decades. That should be more the standard for a really good platform and company. That was my soapbox. Apologies. We're building the company we've always wanted to work for. This means rejecting all the annoying parts of the SaaS industry that have somehow become industry standard. If it gives you the ick, you know it gives us the ick too. All right. You can sum it up in our ideology with this. We try to treat you how we'd want to be treated, which is ah, should be very obvious. We just do the right thing. Apparently, it's their soapbox too. The TLDR newsletter highlighted an article that covered some of the key things, and it is funny that this references TLDR, too long, didn't read, which is a reference like too much text. Highlighted an article, and this is a wall of text. Covered some of the key things that make us different. Here are a few more they missed. So here's the newsletter. Let's see. While Salesforce hikes prices 6% annually, PostHog proves there's room for startups that do the exact opposite of what private equity backed software companies typically do. Right. And that's the thing, too, is the reason for that is a lot of the time private equity invests in a company assuming a set return. And usually it's not a profit return, it's a very extreme return where they don't want a 6 to 5% return every year. They want a 20% return every single year. And they'll try to make that happen even if the customer base shrinks, etc. So it's not a healthy way to run a business. It's automatically extractive. It's automatically semi-abusive. And that's a very quick summary of kind of the problems with the SaaS industry that I will personally speak out about quite a bit, but I appreciate that they're highlighting that too. So this is a nice little TLDR, and it is funny. This is the TLDR newsletter. It is deliberately short, and this one is a little bit longer. No loss leaders. We don't sell products at a loss. We run the company default alive. Nice. So they don't have a loss leader is a product that's sold at a low price point so that you can dominate a market. So you go in low, you chase out your competitors, build up the market share, and then you increase prices gradually to where it's actually profitable. So it's an approach for a zero profit approach to growing a company and then expecting to get the money back later, which is something else. So I appreciate they don't do that. This means we've never had layoffs. Wow. And we don't take huge risks that could result in the company disappearing overnight. And now this is from 2020. We're talking a 6-year-old company, give or take, that has never had layoffs, according to this. No sleazy renewal tactics. Okay. We don't you on contract terms like auto renewal, okay? And while most companies will try to increase your prices every year, you won't find that here. And that's the thing. Like if you have a product, you should have a really good reason for increasing your prices. You should design your contracts in a way where they cover your costs, they meet your needs, they are reasonable for your customers, and it's just a consistent pricing. Like the annual price increase that's assumed is not a good practice and has a ceiling. You think about I just this morning was thinking about how I probably will never renew Disney Plus because it's just gotten outlandishly expensive. I signed on at I think $8 a month, and now it's 25 for one of the minimum tiers. I'm not paying that. Um, yeah, so like as there is a ceiling and there's a point where it doesn't make any sense. So that's a by default unsustainable business model. And this, however, I don't love the sleazy renewal tactics. Like that's a little bit aggressive, but you know what? Use it without talking to us. You can use all of our stuff monthly until you want to lock things in with us. We don't pressure people. That's nice. So you don't have to engage with the company, but they're there if you want to. Actually, technical support. We don't offshore our support. In fact, the entire support team has engineering backgrounds. That's really, really big because a frontline technical support team, especially for a product as complicated as this one, is really hugely important. You want customers to be able to use the tool, have as few barriers as possible to using the tool well as possible, and want to make sure that if they reach out with a question, it is handled like a sales call, where they're treated well, they're treated like somebody who needs to be listened to and talked to, and the person on the other end who's answering the question understands the question, knows the answer, or can get it, will follow through, and also has the authority to actually speak to leadership team. So you have that feed where your C-suite should be talking to your support team. That's another soapbox. But this is a really important piece where most support teams fall short because they don't have authority. They are kind of stomped on by literally everyone, including angry customers that have no one else to talk to. And they often have barriers where it's like, okay, you have to reach this other team for that, or you have to call this other helpline for that, or I don't have the authority to say that, or I will put your feedback into a bucket where it's never going to be read. Like all of those bad support experiences that we all are very familiar with. A company that understands why it's important not to do that, I have immediate respect for that. That's huge. Here for the long haul, we have zero intention of selling our business. And again, the common practice for startups and companies like this is to build to a point and then sell and be bought out and then usually hit that extractive business practices piece. So while that can work, I'm not necessarily against building for an exit. I'm not necessarily against building a product for a sale. Like there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but it has to be managed responsibly by all parties, by the company building for the exit, by the internal teams building towards that exit, by the future buyer. Like all of these steps should be managed responsibly in a healthy way. And the fact of the matter is they're typically not. So I appreciate that. Also, if you're building a product you genuinely love with customers you like working with teams you really enjoy supporting, I have tremendous respect for building a company that's not built for an exit. I've referenced a bunch of the tech giants now. You think Meta, Facebook, you think Google, you think Microsoft. These companies were not built for an exit. And these are the industry dominating companies and have been for basically a generation at least. You're looking at these major companies, and your average SaaS company will never get that big because, again, of those exploitative business practices I keep talking about. I'm really sorry I keep harping on that, but it's important note to make in the context of any company or platform like this, and it's coming up a lot these days, so it is important to talk about it. Here for the long haul. Honest communication. I appreciate, and like we saw that change log, that was an insane level of transparency that most companies would never approve. And that's why you don't get release notes, you don't get patch notes a lot, is because you have leadership teams that don't want to say what's actually being done or what they're working on for fear of either over communicating or under communicating or how it's going to be received by the community. But then you have this weird wall where somebody comes to the a paying customer who's been there for years, says, "Hey, what's going on?" And you don't have anything you can tell them, and that sucks. So having that built into this actual product platform is nice. I appreciate that. Honest communication. It's more honest and not like the marketing speak you've come to expect from other companies. It actively helps developers build successful products. That's our mission. The reason we uniquely love doing all these sorts of things is that we grow because of our reputation on the internet, which is true of every single company, but some companies care and some don't. So this aligns us with customers long term, and that is what wins. And I can say from the customer side of this, from decade of experience in SaaS, B2B working with customers, customers will tolerate a lot more, will appreciate a lot more, will be kinder and better customers and better relationships if they feel like the company continues to care about them. Like they'll pay more, they will pay longer, they will stay on board for a company, and they'll wait longer for things more kindly for a company that clearly shows this kind of values and reflects that long term. This is good. This is long, sorry. Transparency. You can see how our entire company operates. We got to have the cute hedgehogs to break up the wall of text. Our manual for our salespeople marketing team is public. Wow. You can even see what everyone is paid. Wow. Our product roadmap is public. You can vote on what you think we should build next. Wow. Okay. I can feel the sweat from executive investment and board teams coming out of that. Like that is a lot of transparency, and that is hugely challenging because then you will say, "We're doing this thing," and then you got to keep that promise or very clearly explain why you didn't if you don't. See who's working on which product and what their goals are. That's amazing as well. Our code base is open source. Whoa. If you're interested in seeing how we handle the customer data, you can audit our entire code base. Wow. Okay. You won't get this level of transparency from most companies. I would say that is incredibly rare. Like you'll see that from open source companies where the code is just out there, but companies that are actively curating a for-profit product, that is incredibly rare. And especially with this complicated of a code base like this. If you're thinking about bringing PostHog into your business, or if you're interested in joining us, you should be able to make an informed decision, not just about what exists today, but about the future and longevity of the organization. That's huge too. We're right in the era, and I know we'll go to the positive back here, but we're right in this moment of like tremendous mass tech layoffs, many of which were a surprise. They usually happen like this week, 2 weeks before Christmas. Um, which is just mean. It's it is intentionally mean to do that purely for the benefit of the corporation. And it's something that didn't used to happen. You didn't used to lay people off like the first week of December. That's a really awful thing to do to your teams, unless you give them like massive severance, heads up, like any kind of support, which is also not standard. So it is important to have statements of indictment about this kind of behavior. You got to say it. So that is very cool. Everything in one place. And like this suite of products is crazy. Sure, building one product is great, but why stop there? And that's why it's so challenging to say who this is for and what it is. Um, one of the advantages of PostHog is that we're building all the tools you need, so you can have all the context you need in one place. And that is, you don't have to worry about different platforms and tools talking to each other. You don't have to worry about things coming in from different sources. It's all here. So your marketing campaigns, your feature rollouts, your website traffic, your shopping data, all of that built into this single analytics platform is just mind-boggling. That is wow. I said wow 3 times to make up for what I haven't said. We have 10 plus paid products today, and even if we don't offer it yet, we will eventually. Now, that's a bold promise, guys. I will call your bluff on that. I bet you don't have a food truck. If you make a hedgehog themed food truck that rolls through Lisbon in a couple of years, you know what? You win the bet. We'll see. Our unique approach to building a company has allowed us to attract top talent. Many of our team are former founders. We allow our small teams to operate mostly autonomously, which means it's like we're building a bunch of mini startups within an organization that already has a product market fit. Also huge. Most of the most successful tech companies out there, again, most notably Google at its heyday, had that exact approach. And it's very, very powerful where you give individual teams kind of like a pod approach where they have the authority and autonomy to work, they feel much more involved in the whole because they're not like constantly roadblocked, they're not constantly micromanaged. They have that kind of pod approach. It works, it's really good. We're going to build every piece of SaaS you need to make your product successful. You read that right. We've already got the world's best track record at delivering them the wide by being the widest with so many customers. I don't understand that sentence. We've already got the world's best track record at delivering them, which is products, by being the widest with so many customers. I don't know, guys. Here we've got value-based pricing, usage-based pricing. I called that out earlier in the demo that it looks like pricing is based on the volume of use. So it's mostly based on volume of traffic. So as you get more sales, more traffic, that should increase your value from this. This also then charges based on that. So if you're very fair pricing if your usage is low, and then it scales based on how successful your company is doing. Companies with large sales teams use value-based pricing where they try to suss out how much you're willing to spend. PostHog operates more like a utility. We cover our costs with razor-thin margins, and we make up for it with scale. So yeah, so they're not charging based on what you can pay, which I appreciate. They are charging based on what you use, which is nice. PostHog is always cheaper than the cheapest major competitor, so you know you don't have to compare pricing for each new product, but you should anyway, just in case. But still, it's yeah, yeah. And because every product has a generous free tier, you can always try it out before paying anything at all without talking to sales because our pricing is completely transparent. And that's huge. You don't want to have to book a demo to know how much it's going to be cost. You don't want to have to set up a future call to see if it's worth your time to pay for it. That's something that a lot of teams don't want to do. They don't want to make their pricing public just because you want to be able to make the case for the pricing. You want to do custom pricing in certain cases. Having your pricing transparent is a risk. It leaves money on the table, but it does also mean a faster sales cycle because somebody can jump on the website, say like, "This is what I need. That's what it costs. I'm buying it now." Boom. Um, and arguably, for a good product that's bringing in a good use set of customers, that's a more powerful sales approach than any top trained closer is going to get you. You want the top trained closers as well, and you want them to be, going out and chasing sales. But you also want people to come in and buy your product. They want to come in and buy a t-shirt. They want to come in and buy a hat. Just let them do it. They want to come in and buy one module of the product and just start using it. Let them do it. So I appreciate that. And that's just generally very smart sales process. Yeah, that's good. The strategy appears to be working. Nobody wants to be a sheep, but it's probably a good sign when something is very popular. Weird. Tulum, nice. We have over, again, that 200,000 number using our products. Just under 250,000 engineers use us. Wow. That's far, far more than any of our competitors. Most have around 1 to 3,000 customers. Wow. Okay. All right. It's what happens when the internet loves you. So that level of scale is insane. All right. 65% of every Y Combinator batch, the best accelerator for startups, use our products. That's good. So too long didn't read. I did read the wall of text. I did it. Hang on just a second. All right, where were we? Okay. So too long didn't read. We did read the full long wall of text. I did it. I did it. I love you guys. Whether you're looking to bring PostHog into your business or if you're looking to build products with us, we hope you leave our portal on the internet with the understanding that we're here to build a generational company. Ooh, okay. Bold. This isn't a bait and switch scheme or an attempt to exit in a few years. We're building the company we've always wanted to work for and the type of organization that we'd want to buy software from. If we hadn't convinced you yet, come back to our site in a few months. It's almost guaranteed we'll have a few new products by then. James, lovely signature. There it is. There's nice. Okay. We've also got some cool company merch. It's made of high quality materials, so you'll actually want to wear it. That's really cool. And I am very impressed. And considering that the company's been around for 6 years, I'm actually very surprised that I've only heard of PostHog in the last couple months. But they made an impression immediately. So whatever new marketing strategy they're using on LinkedIn has been very, very effective. So I don't know if it's new. I only just recently saw it. What does this do? The pricing. Look at you. All right, there we go. There's that public pricing. Pay as you go. Wow, you just do it. My God. Okay. There's a cloud regions. You've got a EU cloud region or a US cloud region. And then they've got their clear pricing right there based on events. Nice. Okay. Wow. And like this is very, very reasonable pricing, which of course makes sense because you're talking product analytics. You get 10 million visitors a year. This adds up fast. But if you get a couple hundred visitors per year, you're not even going to pay $1, which hopefully you don't. But yeah, very impressive. This is really, yeah, wow. I'm glad I did this just to see it, but this has been a ride, y'all. Anyway, if you're still with me, hopefully this is fun for you too. Post dog, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Till next time. Cheers.